welcome to Delivering Miracles, a podcast to teach women like you tips and strategies on how you can have a safer pregnancy so you can bring home a healthy baby. I'm your host and your high-risk pregnancy expert, Parijat Deshpande. I can't wait to chat with you. There's such a fascination about celebrities and celebrities who get pregnant and who have babies. I mean, do you remember when Beyonce announced that she was pregnant with twins? She had shared this image of her, I think it was kneeling on something, and there was flowers everywhere against a blue backdrop, and she had some veil covering her or something. She didn't really say a whole lot. She just shared that image, and I think it broke Twitter. I think it actually broke some kind of record on Twitter for the number of times a tweet was retweeted or something like that. It's just, we have such a fascination with celebrities, right? They're so famous and they're so rich and they're so just like, it feels like they live in another world than the rest of us. And so we get really curious about who are they when they start doing something so quote unquote typical, like us regular folk, like having children, which, you know, hey, I get there's obviously not a lot of them share a lot of information. Like at the same time, I think as Beyonce's announcement was George Clooney's announcement that his wife was pregnant, and they didn't share anything. And so I get, you know, obviously from their perspective, they want some privacy, but us mere mortals sometimes are very curious about how do you, people who have $6 bazillion and are so busy and so famous, how do you guys do what the rest of us do? What does that look like? So I thought it would be fun for us to chat a little bit about some fun or some crazy celebrity birth stories and get a little bit of insight into what they have been through. And I think it sheds a little bit of light on kind of how normal some of this stuff is. And then it sheds a little bit of light on kind of how not so normal some of these things are. So I thought it'd be fun to start there. So speaking of Beyonce and Jay-Z had their first daughter, Blue Ivy, and there was some rumor or some stories, a lot of like articles around that time saying that parents, because they needed so much security and they'd kind of taken over such a huge part of the maternity ward for security, that certain parents couldn't actually get to their babies in the NICU. Now, I couldn't find whether it was actually true or not. It seems like it must be true if there's a lot of people that are talking about it and their parents who are speaking out about it. I imagine there might be some truth to that. I remember hearing that story because Blue Ivy was born the same year that my son was born. And I remember being so angry hearing that. He wasn't born yet. I don't even remember if I was pregnant yet. But I just remember being so angry about that because as a NICU parent, I mean, if you have ever had a baby in the NICU, you know, like you are in tunnel vision. That is the only thing you're thinking about. You're so worried about your baby. It doesn't matter how early or how late preterm the baby's born. You're worried. You're scared. You want to be with that child. And to know that a celebrity, just because they're so famous, was potentially keeping them away. I think I read somewhere that they didn't want anybody to get a picture of Blue Ivy. And I'm thinking, if my son was in the same NICU, I honestly couldn't care if the president of the United States was there or my favorite actor, Hugh Jackman, was there. Like, I wouldn't care. I could not care any less. I'm there for my son. I want to make sure my son is okay. I think that's a little intense. Now, obviously, I'm not some world superstar, so I don't know about security and how this all works. Nobody cares where I go. It doesn't really matter. But oh man, that one has stuck with me. And I sure hope that is not how it went down But if there was any truth to that, I gotta say, I was not thrilled to hear that at all. I was actually really upset to hear it. Just having been there as a NICU parent, it really doesn't matter. I mean, nothing matters, even to a fault, because then, you're not really taking care of yourself as parents either because you're so focused on the baby. But you get what I'm saying here. Okay, so that's Beyonce. Mayim Bialik, so if you might remember her from Punky Brewster or from The Big Bang Theory, she delivered her baby at home, which is not hugely surprising. A lot of people deliver their babies at home. But she had her son, Miles, sitting in a high chair eating granola while she was in labor and while she delivered her younger son. And she actually says, fortunately, it was a very fast labor because I think Miles would have been bored if it was longer than an hour and a half that it was, which totally true, right? Toddlers have a very short attention span. I'm actually surprised he sat there for an hour and a half. But how freaking cool is this? How cool is this? I think this is so awesome that her older child got to see how his sibling came into the world. I think that's so cool. I think we shelter our children, and really just everybody, really. We shelter ourselves too much, I think, from birth and death. And I'm not some super crunchy home birthing. I mean, hello, I had the most medicalized process of bringing my child into this world possible. But I think there's something so awesome about letting children see the circle of life, right? This is how a child comes into the world, and then being there, being open, obviously developmentally appropriate and everything, but really being open about how does life start? Where does it begin? And think of the image and the impression that he has about women and their bodies and being able to bring life into the world. I think that, she says that he loves it. He still talks about it. Even as he's getting older, he still remembers it. But I can't even imagine how much this has changed the course of his life because he was able to witness this. I think it's so, so cool that she was able to do that. Okay, next up, we've got Kelly Preston, John Travolta's wife. Long time ago, she delivered a little boy named Benjamin. And she used the Scientology practice of a silent birth. And what that basically means, as far as I understand, is you just talk as little as possible. I mean, you can make sounds like moaning or crying or grunting, I guess, but you don't really say anything. And you keep it as quiet as possible. And I guess the meaning behind it is that if you welcome children in a quiet way, it gives them peaceful personalities. And it sounds like, because of Scientology practice, that Katie Holmes actually did this too, because she was married to Tom Cruise back in the day. So I'm all for peace and calm. And I really do believe that mom being at peace, mom being calm, not just is important for her in terms of managing pain, because it does. It really is very, very effective at managing pain. It builds up her confidence, it keeps her empowered and really in the present for the birth experience. There's less likelihood of her dissociating or just kind of feeling like she's floating above herself or she's not really connected with her body. I think it's really important, feeling that peace and calm. And actually, I did this when my son was born because, as you know, he was born extremely preterm, 24 weeks and 5 days. And I had so many scares along the way. But when it was time, I knew it was time. It just felt different. I knew that, okay, something's different, something's wrong. I was already on magnesium. I was contracting like crazy. And it just felt different. And while it wasn't very painful for me, it was uncomfortable, at least especially emotionally, because I knew this was it. There's nothing more that we could do to keep him in. And so before he came out, I just shut off all my thoughts and I shut off all the anxiety, and I just made my body as limp and as peaceful and as calm as possible. And I remember imagining and really focusing on and visualizing the last ultrasound that we'd had, which was a 3D ultrasound of his face, which was just a few weeks prior to that, and just really focusing on him. And I remember thinking, this is the last time that I get to give him that sense of peace from me, because once he's born, it's going to be chaos. And this is the last chance that I get to do that. And so I get it. I think it's awesome. I think it's super, super awesome and really great when mom is at peace and is calm, which is why it's so important to kind of manage all of that ahead of time during your pregnancy, so that when time comes, whenever this baby is born, you're able to do that. But silent? I don't know that silence really does that. I think you can have that peace and calm while still talking. I think that's okay. I don't think the silence is necessarily a must for that to be possible. And okay, as a clinically trained therapist, I will tell you that the way a child enters into the world has no bearing on their personality. It really doesn't. It's just not how it works. So much of personality is built in genetically through your temperament, and then is molded and shaped by the rest of your life. I don't believe at all that even a hugely important milestone in your life like birth and being born, as amazing and huge and important as it is, has that much bearing over the rest of your life. So, there's that. And, I mean, it's coming from Scientology, so it kind of creeps me out in general. So there's that. I think there's some niceness and some truth to this, and I think some of it maybe doesn't necessarily need to be so intense and out there, So that's where we are with that one. I'm curious though, if you have had a silent birth, or if you believe in silence, if you are somebody who practices that, even if you're not part of Scientology, but if that's just something that's really important to you, I would love to hear more stories about that. So definitely, please let me know. I'd love to know more about it. Okay, the next one that we have, Miranda Kerr. Okay, so back in the day, many, many years ago, she was married to Orlando Bloom, and they had a son named Flynn. And she is such a trooper. She was in labor for 27 hours. 27 hours. I can't even imagine. And she gave birth to Flynn with no epidural, weighing at 9 pounds, 12 ounces. Holy cow. I mean, I gave birth to a baby that was less than 1.5 pounds. And so to me, giving birth to anything over like 4 pounds seems really hard. So 9 pounds, almost 10 pounds seems like, holy cow, I don't know how she did it. But her thing was, she actually, I think, said at some point that she felt like she was going to die because the pain was so bad, which I can only begin, I really can't even begin to imagine, to be honest with you. But her thing was that she did not want her husband, who at the time was Orlando Bloom, she did not want him to leave the delivery room at all. Not even to drink water or not even to take a bathroom break. So he was actually, over those 27 hours, peeing in a bottle so he didn't have to leave. Now, my husband wasn't even in the room when my son was born, so I don't know how I'd feel about him leaving. My husband wasn't actually there for the birth, which is something that we laugh about now. At the time, it was very sad. But we laugh about it now. But this is new. This is new. I totally get it. I get it, actually, right? Like this is the most vulnerable that you're probably ever in your entire life. Just so vulnerable. You're getting ready to do something so life-changing and so life-altering, and you want your partner there, right? Like they're your rock. They're your solid rock. They are your eyes and ears when you're feeling crazy because your body's doing all this stuff and it's new. And even if it's your 5th or 6th pregnancy or it's your first, I think it's a whole body, whole mind experience, right? It takes over everything, which obviously makes sense, right? And so I get it. You want your partner to be there. And I guess, I guess I can kind of understand a little bit, because I know when I was on hospital bed rest, I was scared. And I just felt better when my husband was in the room. Like, okay, how when you get married, some people say that it's like you're giving your heart to somebody else. And I think that's maybe how it manifests, is now you're in this really vulnerable place where things are just happening and it's all good stuff, but it's scary and it's nerve-wracking and it's exciting, and it's just nice to know that you've got your heart right there with you, and you feel more confident and you feel like you're surrounded by love, and you just feel more comfortable having somebody there. And if you're not able to speak up for yourself, then there's that too, right? The practical side of it is you know your partner knows what you want, hopefully, or at least can guess or can really gauge from kind of the looks that you're shooting at him or her. They know you so well that even if you can't speak up for yourself, you know that somebody else is there to do it for you, which I think is really kind of cool. But man, no bathroom breaks for 27 hours. That's dedication right there. That's pretty awesome that he was able to do that. And kind of sad that they didn't stay together, but I guess it's Hollywood. It happens. Nothing personal, I guess. Okay, Jessica Alba. This one's really cool. Okay, so she has a great pregnancy. She goes in. She's ready to deliver. And when her daughter starts coming out, her doctor was like, "Oh my God, you have to come see this," and says this to the nurse, and I can't remember if it's the midwife, but at least the other people in the room. Now, that's not exactly the words that you want to hear when you're in the middle of delivering a child, but it was for a good reason, because Jessica delivered her daughter, Haven, with her amniotic sac intact. What? Right? So the baby, so typically what happens in pregnancy is you begin labor. At some point your water breaks, right? We've experienced this, or we've seen it in TV or movies. It feels like a gush or some water, like the water breaks. That's the amniotic sac, which your baby is in and floating around in for 40 weeks. That water breaks, and then your baby comes out. You have contractions and you push, and then baby's born, and then after that you deliver the placenta, and that's how it typically goes. For people like me who have PPROM, which is preterm premature rupture of membranes, the water breaks before you're at term. For others, you have PROM, which is your water breaks before you start labor. So there's different ways of doing that. But in her case, I don't think she was high risk, so things were going typically. In her case, she started labor. She delivered the baby, but the baby was in that sac that has been in her uterus for the last 40 weeks. And it's so cool to see. If you can stomach it and you don't mind looking at images like that, Google, it's called an ENCAUL birth, ENCAUL birth. And it's where, it can happen in a variety of different ways. And in some cases, babies are born with the entire sac intact. For some, It's the sac is still around the head or the neck or part of the torso. And it is really rare. It's like less than 1 in 80,000 births are like this. And it is, if you can stomach it, I would definitely Google that image because it's so cool to see. Like it's the first and really the only way that we can see what a baby looks like in utero, because they're still in that tiny little sac that they've been in, that they've been growing in since the very beginning. It's so, so awesome. And so it's really cool because then when she shared how they picked her name, they decided that because she came out into the world in her quote unquote safe haven, that's how they decided to name her Haven, which I thought was so sweet. So sweet, right? Like such a perfect name for this little baby. Love it. Love it. So yeah, if you can handle it, check it out. Encalbirth, Encaul. Super, super cool. Okay. And for this last one, this one is my absolute favorite. Okay. Christina Applegate. I love her. This one's my favorite. So you might know that years back, Christina Applegate actually developed breast cancer at a really young age too, because she's actually still very young. And she went under surgery. She, treated the breast cancer, and she underwent a double mastectomy, which basically means a removal of both of her breasts. And this is something that's very personal to me because there's somebody in my family who has gone through this, and I know how hard that is. At least that's not true. I don't actually personally know how hard it is, but I've seen how hard it can be. And it really affects your identity. Especially in the world that we live in now, especially if you're in the United States or the Western world, there's so much emphasis placed on breasts all the time, right? And accentuating them and highlighting them. And they're very closely tied to femininity and what it means to be a woman. And especially when you are hoping to become a mother, right? It's, with it almost is definitive of being a mother is having breasts where you can feed your child. Now, I say this as somebody who could not do that. And so there's a whole other piece of that, right? Of not being able to, but she's kind of so many steps past that of not even having breasts when she was pregnant and then when she delivered her baby. And I love this. I'm just going to read her quote because I think it is just so powerful. She said that when her daughter was born, I dropped my gown, which I don't do. This part of my body is very private to me. That's a really private place, a place that I don't have a good relationship with, let's say. But at that moment of pulling Sadie out, I just tore that thing off. There's a room full of people that I don't know, nurses and doctors, and she and I just laid there. It was the best thing that's ever happened to me. I have chills right now. I have chills. This is what pregnancy and birth should be about. This right here. Healing moments. Empowering moments. When you deliver a child, a baby is born and a mother is born. And you are a new woman. And yeah, you will carry the scars and the baggage and all of that you've had from your life prior. That'll be there. But it can transform. It can transform, and it can be so life-changing if you let it. Oh my God, every time I read that, it just hits home, It It hits home. And it is so beautiful. And it is what I want for you. It is absolutely possible. So cool. So, oh my gosh, it's fun, right? To sometimes just kind of step out of your reality for a second and go into the world of Hollywood and look at what is it that they're going through. And, I'll do a whole episode on pregnancies for celebrities because I think we tend to feel like, and I know I did, we worry about, oh my gosh, is this me? What am I doing wrong? What's going on? And celebrities are people too, and they have high-risk pregnancies too. As you've seen, they have their preferences of how they want their births to go, and they have these amazing, enlightening, healing moments too. So we'll talk about that. We'll have some fun with this. But I hope that you had fun listening to this. I had fun chatting with you about this today too, because like I said, it's great to get out of your own world sometimes and just kind of see what else is going on out there for other women and other moms and moms to be. So thank you so much for joining me here today. And if you want to know more about how you can have a healthier high-risk pregnancy, I would love to invite you to join me in the Healthy High-Risk Pregnancy course. You can visit my website at parijatdeshpande.com/shop and click on the image all the way at the bottom with the woman wearing the blue polka dot shirt and register today. And I can't wait to see you there. I'd also love to stay in touch, so follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Parijat Desh, that's PARIJATDESH for both, and definitely say hello. You are doing great, and I hope that you allow yourself to have a little bit of fun during your pregnancy too, even if it's just reading up on some celebrity pregnancy and birth stories. You deserve it. Take it one day, one step at a time. You can do this.